day, everyone. It is October 16th, and welcome to Forward Focus. Rue says that it is World Cat Day. What? That true, Carl? World Cat Day? Woohoo! Does that mean you're dressed up like a kitty cat? If so, I have to see pictures of that. All right, you guys, we are going to get going. You're allergic? What do you mean? We are going to get going here, and we're going to be talking about what is going on in the current market and what we're going to be looking at here in the near term. So I'm going to flip on over to our charts, and we're going to start off with the NASDAQ. Here. So here's our weekly time frame. Let me get the drawing tools off of here. I've got some old fib fans from intraday popping up. So we are at a level up here, you guys, where we basically got double top type of action going on. We had that pullback there. There's a pretty good rapid pullback back in September. And now we're at this widening up zone. So when we look at this major move up here, you can see there's a little bit of choppiness at the midway point. So we basically have a 2-segment impulse wave here. And now we're at a zone where we are at a widening up zone. And the thing with a widening up zone is that there's so many ways that this can play out. So we will sometimes see things happening where it will come off of this high kind of really slow. It'll go into a range like this, and then it will pick up and drop really quickly. So you'll go from like a shallow avalanche into like a 1, 2, 3, and that can even continue like that. That's one way things can start to kind of widen up at here. We can also see things where they'll go for like a 2T and widen up, and that can even go into like a megaphone and widen up further at levels like this. We can get it where it goes into like a longer trading range and then eventually can break higher. That's another way that the market can widen up. So there's a lot of things that can happen once you get an impulse move where that impulse move is really extended. We don't have a lot of places to compare this size impulse move, but if you look at it in, previous examples in the market, you can see, different ways that can happen. So sometimes things will even slow on really small time frames. You'll get the really big move up, you'll get like shifting happening on a smaller time frame that can go and turn it around. So on a bigger time frame, it might look like a V top when really there was shifting going on a smaller time frame that just doesn't show on the bigger one. So that makes, determining, hey, what to do here in the long run a little bit more difficult, because all we know is that we're in a corrective phase in the market. But since we had such a strong upside move, it's correcting mostly through time at this point. And what you have to do is drop down and look at what's going on the smaller time frames to really get a better idea of what we need to do on those time frames. So for example, right now, what we're looking at is we had this shift here as things came into the middle of the support level. And as you guys know, I don't really like to use like the highs from a previous pivot as much for support level. I like to use midway congestion levels or secondary support levels. They tend to be stronger than the first time something hits. So we did see, first hit right here. But as I mentioned at the time, that was just the first support. So when something comes in a little bit better, that's usually better support level. And that shift there helped pop this back up. We got a phoenix here. It was a messy phoenix. You can kind of see it as an inverse head and shoulders here. And then we hit the measured move zone a couple days ago. So we're already at a good resistance level again, but the momentum up is still very strong. So with the two-wave move up, we could conceivably see this go and do another move. That could do something like, shifting like that. It doesn't have to. It might go into like maybe even a range like that. And then you might get an extra pop up that kind of creates a 2T up there. That's something that could still happen at this point because it's still just under the previous high. So maybe we get congestion here for a couple of weeks, especially as we're going into the election. Then maybe some election news here. You notice that timing on that, where that time development would be. Maybe that election news gives us a little pop and then creates a trap. That's a really conceivable potential pattern that we could find developing here over the next couple of weeks because the timing for that would be just about right. So I would not be at all surprised if the next couple of weeks we see a lot of choppiness, not really a prime direction. The chart certainly had that potential, but to play it over the next couple of weeks, what I would do is just drop down and look at, patterns that are forming intraday. So things like that Phoenix, things like the 2B and the little checkmark Phoenix, the bigger Phoenix here. We were looking at the channel break over here. And so, we got a little head and shoulders. This is a little tricky in here. You could get another, move in like this. But just play it more on like the scalper side of things right now. Day trade side of things. I wouldn't be too excited about swing trades right now. Let's go look at, I want to show you the 40,000 tick chart. I'm just going to remove these on all of them. So what we've got here on the 40,000 tick chart is I mentioned earlier today, our king, our larger time frame is perfectly fine for having more selling today. This could easily come back into here, holding this high. It had a pop, a little bit slowing up here as it came into the midway level. So this could easily go back and forth longer. It's really not much of a correction yet compared to over here. There's still more time development. So we've still got more downside potential as we're heading into later in the day. In fact, we just had a little two-wave correction up that just triggered a short a minute ago as we're heading into class. See that little two-wave pop? Perfect little two-wave correction for another short there. This might go into a head and shoulders, so you could get a little congestion here, then a second wave down. Doesn't have to, it could go with a 1, 2, 3, but this is about a third or so back up, so a little bit of a chance it might base out a little bit longer first before it tries to do that. Let's go look at some other markets, you guys. Yeah, it had a momentum reversal plus right here. You guys see that? We'll put it on a 100 tick. So here's the momentum reversal, and then there's the plus. So you have a really strong short setup there, and it's hit the main support. So there's room for this to then go and develop into a secondary move down. But with this pulling up a third here, it could go and do it with like a head and shoulders first before it tries to. But that's a really, really pretty setup there. Sounds like some of you guys caught it too. So let's go look at some other markets. What do you guys want to look at today? Show you the ES really fast. So kind of the same type of thing going on here on the ES, is kind of widening up in a big megaphone here. Again, two waves up, so you're at exhaustion here on the trend. Sure, it can put in a little bit of a slightly higher high, but we're at high levels that it'd be, you know, kind of more iffy. You're just at little scalper zones up there. This ERJ is at a zone where we sometimes see like little pops, but look at how the shift is happening. It is something that I would be concerned could really still flush down. I don't know, man. I wouldn't touch this thing down here. You're at a level where when we look at this from a channel point of view, like it's just not a strong phoenix here because of how low level things are forming in here. I would be concerned that even if this pops as a phoenix, it could still go and pop again back to the downside or maybe struggle to get going. So I don't know. I would just kind of leave that one alone myself. If this had formed like where, you know, maybe it came back up, like it had like a slightly lower low there and came back up and had like a base up in here, but it popped up to the upper end of that channel really fast, that would be stronger. But with this symmetrical triangle like this, problem with symmetrical triangles is a lot of times they give a false break and then they can go the other way. And I'd actually like for both side of things, I'd prefer a false break to the downside first to try to get that turned around. So I don't think I have enough of like a strong bias to be able to get a good setup on this. So even this here, you know, even this intraday where it looks like a check mark, this is a two-wave move up where it's trying to break too early and you only have one low. So it really needs another pullback in there, even on the intraday charts. Let's look here. Netflix got a gap closure rounding off there. You've got two waves up here with Netflix. Even though it's a third test of the highs, I don't really trust it to break. You've got so much exhaustion still up here. Maybe it tries to pull in something to do like a little bit of a trap, but it ran from the lower end of the range all the way up to the upper end of the range without much of a pause anywhere in the middle. And our distance between our highs isn't really quite good for a breakout yet. I would have preferred if this had come up and done like something where it shifted again to try to break up. So I think that intraday, this runs a lot of risk of pulling back more, especially with the way this is kind of shifting up here. This is where you could get like those momentum reversal pluses where it kind of treats like three highs in here, comes back down, kind of pops back up, and then can come back in and go back again to the downside. So it's kind of messy here. It's definitely one that can pop back up, but then come back down like that. Kind of complete like a third move. So you got your first, second, and then third. That's what I would watch for. And it's not really a megaphone because it doesn't have like the higher high in there, but the concept, like the underlying feel of it is pretty close. It's just missing that midway higher high. If you'll notice on the NASDAQ, I don't know if you guys have that up, but it is going for that right shoulder. So it held that support that we were looking at. PPD is just a creeper. So problem with creepers is that they can flush fast. So a lot of times when something is creeping up like this, what we'll see is, you know, when it does flush, it can flush and pop back up before you really get like a bigger turnaround. So a lot of times they'll go up, you'll get the ballet foot, you'll get the flush, you'll get the higher high. So kind of like what we were talking about as a possibility happening on Netflix. You can get that same type of thing happening on something like PPD here. And they can give like fake highs, like where they'll like do a little check mark at the high, try to break it, and then do the flush. The problem is without like consistent ability in here to time distance, it's kind of hard to just tell where that end is. So what it kind of looks like to me right now is that this is what the trend is. So this is our first correction. Here's our second correction. So this whole zone in here is the midway correction. That's just what it's looking like eyeballing. So there is more room for this. It's just really tricky. So it's kind of trading this like a second correction. So the key is, can it break the upper end of that trading channel? It would have to do that to offer confirmation. So it's right at a do or die point right now. US Canadian dollar, so we are right in this midway zone. I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of pulls down here a little bit more. You've got one main leg down, second, so we're looking at kind of shifting as it's coming back in here. A lot of times this can go for a really huge megaphone before it tries to pull back up in here. And then how that tries to pull up will determine whether it's able to totally recover or not. So if it kind of gets off to like a really slow start, it's really a lot harder for that to make a good recovery. So this is going to be tricky too. I would lean more towards a bit more downside as it wraps up the year on this weekly time frame. Let's go look at the shorter time frames though. So shorter time frame, momentum is shifting. So what would normally happen in here, you'll kind of come pull up in there, you'll get this going like this, and then it can try to pop again like that. So this would be a pretty good way that this would very often play out. So I would wait for another move down and then start to look for things to try to pop it short term. So kind of like a 2B type of pattern up there. Why my drawing tools got moved over here, but whatever. And let's see here. So look at how RRC was shifting with momentum shifting. That extra little shift at the bottom is what really can help turn things so that you get pops. But here's an example of where the pop just doesn't play out. So we had the shifting with the momentum, went into a Phoenix, but it just couldn't keep up. So you have to really watch when it does do the 2B action, how does the momentum play out on the 2B? What we've been talking about in League of Traders this week is you want that 2B to come up and break these pivot highs pretty easily without much pause. And that's what's really going to turn things around. So see how this did? It pulled up and it broke those highs. Didn't pause. So this is trying to do a little bit more of a Phoenix, but it's still struggling with that momentum. So you need to have it confirm this channel break to confirm that it can really turn around, which means that we don't really know that right now. So you have to get into it earlier and then just watch the momentum. So you need to see that momentum pick up like it did over here to really offer more confirmation on that. But right now it's going okay. So if you're looking at places like for adding in, like you're talking about, kind of didn't do a great spot yet because like when we look at the time development here, by the way, this is that spike and then coming back down and then popping again. So you can see how that can play out on our previous one. So the time development is not quite there yet. So, you know, we get a little bit of congestion or something in there, that could help give you another setup. Kind of almost like a tilted head and shoulders is what I would prefer to see happening. So the best pattern would probably be a drop kind of fast and then a shift. That would be the best to get that going again. So it kind of flushes, scares people, but then they're like, oh, never mind. That would be the best pattern to look for adding back in, because what it does is it makes up for this little shift that's happening right here and the fact that this is still a little bit too early on that daily time frame. Z, you are really exhausted up here, Z. So Z is one where we can certainly get the flushes and then the pops and then the turnaround. So it would kind of treat this like your ballet foot, flush, pop, and then turn. That's what I would prefer to see. It doesn't have to do that extra little pop, but that would be the strongest to get a better pullback coming back on the weekly time frame. Because see, here's our two waves up right here, kind of from like, you know, the 60 to 80 and then 80 to 110. So something where it can kind of shift it a little bit, that would help bring in more of a correction a little bit easier. Watch this. If this pulls back a third, you guys, of that move, then it's going to be harder for it to recover. KODK. NASDAQ, by the way, is still working on forming a potential shoulder. So these are tricky, this weekly. Look at this. So see how this is going into like, you got like that big ol' triangle there. So a lot of times these will give like these fake breaks and people will think, oh, hey, it looks like a check mark. It's a great buy. When really when something goes up, comes back down hard, goes up, does a check mark, it's really hard for that check mark to get going again. It's actually better if it goes and does like a megaphone or something like that to try to give you another move up. So I don't know if this is going to manage to do that because it didn't really even pull up enough here. So ideally what you would want to see is like another main low in that range before it would try to take off again. This kind of looks like it could slowly come back in. Maybe you'll get a spike again before the end of the year, but this is going to be tricky to do that. NASDAQ last little low was a little bit too high to bring in our head and shoulders as easily. I'll show you that again here in a second. Oh, here you can see when we were playing around with showing how to do order executions. Let's see here. I think we were working on how do you do the advanced trailing stops and things like that on there. So you've got a momentum reversal plus here on this on the weekly with a megaphone. And then the shallow confirmation is good, but then when it got up to here, it couldn't confirm. So it pulled back a third. So we risk this coming back in again. And so that might do like a little bit of an inverse head and shoulders, but this is going to be harder still to get the bulls coming back in. We really need to see something shifting momentum. If it can go into like a bigger head and shoulders, playing out like that. So this is the smaller head and shoulders, and then go into a bigger head and shoulders. That could help turn it around a little bit more easily. I want to do the monthly on this. Our daily is kind of, you got the momentum reversal up here. No momentum reversal plus, and it didn't really come down to hit that support there. So it's kind of trying to do a megaphone as a short, but these lows are too close together. So it's not really having a good pattern either way on the daily time frame right here. This is what we call a zone of pain. Would have been better if this pulled back a little bit more if you were looking for more short side. So like when it came back down here, if it kind of like came into here and then kind of started to do a megaphone. Intraday is kind of a mess. I mean, gosh, intraday, this could even go as a mega phoenix there. So this could widen up a little bit more like this and even go as a mega phoenix, kind of a shallow one here, following this 2B. But yeah, it's at a zone of pain. It's messy. CU daily is, by the way, we just got the head and shoulders trigger on the NASDAQ. U monthly, no, daily, no. So this is kind of that upward where it went and it pulled back really fast, came back up with one swoop. So trying to do much upside in here is going to be really tricky. It's going to be more of like a trading range probably. I don't see anything on here. Interest. Intraday, it's shifting. So maybe it could even go as like a phoenix. And then maybe go as a megaphone after that point. That would be a possibility on that 15-minute time frame. But it's another really messy one. I'm going to show you guys the NASDAQ again quick so you can see how it's played out for what we were looking at a few minutes ago. Any of you guys happen to trade it? Yep, of course. So here's our 300 tick. So this is what we were talking about. That was a little bit too high there. So it went in, kind of shifted momentum there. So you've got your head and shoulders right here. So, this would have been a little bit better if it was more, like that. But it just hit our first target, first support level. So now what you want to see is just a little kind of kneecap would be preferable to get it going further. That would be like the best thing to see here. It might try to go into a longer avalanche like that, but the kneecap would be the one that would be like the most ideal. Looks like it's going to go for option number 2 though. Yeah, it's fun when you guys get to see setups as we're actually in class. You get to see the trades as they're playing out. Entry trigger on this was right about here. Not here. No, no, no. Wait for the second move. Wait for the spacing. That's your entry trigger. All right. You guys want me to take a look at anything else here before we wrap up? Yeah, we looked at ETO. We can look at MDRNA. See, this this didn't really do either of those two that we were looking at, so it's kind of a little bit wonky here. So it's at this support. So it pulled up too much here, pulled up a third. So ideally, at that point, that would go more like that. And it didn't base there. So now maybe it will do like a 2-wave like this, but it's kind of a little bit more iffy because it didn't do either of the two that we wanted to see. So I'll keep that one up on this chart so we can look at it again before we go. So here's our EGO. You're right up there at resistance on the daily time frame, meaning that as far as impulse moves go, that's a really typical impulse move. It hit with massive momentum. So it's hard for it to like just, totally drop, but it could do shifting that could bring it in more. I think overall though, it should hold up pretty well up here. This is one of those where you're more likely to get, again, ballet toe flushing can come back up. So there's nothing overly concerning on this for like a downside move. It's looking pretty strong. Weekly looks pretty good. Look at how that shifting is taking place there on the weekly. So here was that extra. So when it comes in hard and fast like that again, I like to see it take out this previous low because it flushes, and then that allows things to turn around again. So this one, the fact that it pulled up really strong there after it flushed, that's good. That's what you like to see. So this is still looking pretty good, even though you've got measured move because it's a rounding low, it can still keep going further. Wouldn't be overly concerned on this one. Yeah, it's a messy phoenix, but it is a phoenix. ADSK for this afternoon. So this is an example of where that can do ballet foot flush pop back up. So it did it on a small scale right here. So we might see it repeating there on that weekly. So here's your 3 highs, pop, came back, and look at where it came to, and that's coming back up really well. So that's actually a pretty nice strong setup there. So this afternoon, you're getting, you're getting exhausted. It could risk doing some flushes. Didn't quite hit a measured move, and it's going past kind of the time development. So you might flush and see that pop back up again later. Or go like that and kind of shift like that before it flushes. So I don't have like a great read on this for this afternoon because I could see it doing a number of different things here. My chart on this is about 15 minutes delayed on this platform. So, that, I mean, you run the risk that that could do a shallow avalanche, but it doesn't have to because it's the same amount of time about. So you might get that third wave up. Kind of watch it really carefully in here for smaller momentum shifts. So as long as it comes up and holds like that upper end of the range, that could give you that third move up. But if it hugs the bottom, the flush is really easy. So this is a tricky one right now from what I'm looking at. But again, it might look a little bit different for the live charts right now. So you might already be able to see some of that shift starting to try to happen. Your main risk when you're seeing something that's forming like this is if it goes and kind of does like that, and you get like smaller zones of where it's kind of hugging down in here, that's what can lead to a stronger flush. What you want to see is just the continuation of rounding off. So then you want your hugging to be up in here, and that will help pop it. Again, I don't know exactly what this is doing right now, but that's what you would want to watch for. Hold on just a second, guys. I took that head and shoulders, so I'm doing some adjusting here. I couldn't resist. I'm like, yeah, okay, I gotta take it. I know I'm in class, but let me show you what I just adjusted. So what I wanted to see was that this went as a tilted continuation. So I just moved my stop above that high. Got some little bit of support here. Home, HOME. Did I take anything off there? Yeah. And then I just moved the stop on a little bit above that high. I'm not holding a lot right now because I'm distracted. So I did take most of it off. Let's see here. You want to look at HOME. How you doing with that trade, Donna? I'm sure she'll post a chart for us here in a little bit too. Show us what she did with it. Home. That was a really nice breakout right there on that 5-minute. Home looks pretty good. I would suspect this is going to go to a higher high. I would aim for about 26 is pretty good, pretty reasonable. Daily looks okay. It looks like you're doing a tilted continuation. You just want to keep that momentum up there. So what we want to see this do here is treat this like it is a tilted continuation. And I do see that as a good possibility because of how this is formed in here. These are basically little time corrections, not much for price correction. So there's definitely room for that to keep going. That was a good find. A nice job on that one, Karen. HTZ. All right, we will pull up HTZ and wrap it up, you guys. Donna says she is out that head and shoulders. She'll post a chart for us. Or no. Oh wait, you are out? Yes. Did I read that wrong? Yeah. She is out. Hmm. So basically what you're looking at, you guys, when you have something that goes like this, and you get these things and then they pop, they'll have extra little pops kind of along the way, but it looks still pretty dead. And sometimes that pop will only be a day. So you might get like a 3-day pop, 1-day pop, intraday pop. And yeah, even though it looks like you said it secured a bankruptcy loan, it's not good. It's not good. No. Yep. All right, you guys. Well, watch for the room to see what Donna did on that one. And I also ended up getting out of the rest of that when it popped up again there too strongly and then came back. I'll show you my exit. I'll go down to a smaller time frame so you can kind of see a little bit better. So what I don't like to see is for these pops to go up about a third. So this needed to go as a 1, 2, 3. So when that popped back up and came back in here, I just closed the rest. And as you can see, if I hadn't, it would have taken out my trailing stop there, my adjusted stop. But most of my exit was in here as it was coming into the previous low. And it was also a measured move on the ES was coming into a measured move at that level too. So the ES was kind of looking like a little bit of a 2B. All right, you guys. I hope you learned a little bit here, and some of you made some money as we were following that trade. So that's awesome too. I'm gonna wrap this up and get this posted for you guys. If you want to go back and study Thursday's um, student group, it is available in the bonus section of the members area for you League Trader folks. Yesterday's session is in there as well, so you can go back and study that. And I will see you back here next week. So have a wonderful weekend, you guys. Stay safe out there and get out and enjoy the weather if you've got some nice weather. We are cooling off here. You are very welcome.